unlimited possibilities that railroads had introduced into the culture of the United States is still part of the beating heart of the American story. So today's story is going to be about America's love affair with model trains. Hi, I'm Pete Frenzel, and this is, in their own words, the story of the American experiment in the words of the people who made it happen. To give you a brief history of how model trains evolved, in the middle of the 1800s, in Germany, toy manufacturers, who also were good at clock making, took cast tin and cast brass to make cars that looked like locomotives and inserted clock mechanisms, or wind-up mainspring clock mechanisms inside these trains to make them move forward. They were not on tracks. There was no electricity back then. They were just basically clockwork model toy trains. And they used carved wood for accents on the locomotives. In Great Britain, the custom was to have miniaturized steam engines, which were reproduced models of the larger machines. They called them dribblers because they would be actual steam engines about 1.5 to 2 feet in length, which would dribble water along the path. And again, these trains didn't have any tracks either back in the middle of the 1800s. It wasn't until the turn of the 20th century when toy makers like Ives from Connecticut and later on Lionel and American Flyer developed more cost-effective model trains which were more friendly with the household budget of Americans, that the model train hobby exploded in the United States, and today there are hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people who are engaged in the hobby. We are fortunate to be sitting here at the headquarters of the New York Society of Model Engineers with their magnificent layouts here in East Rutherford, New Jersey. So with us today is the president of the New York Society of Model Engineers, Joe Adamkiewicz. So I'm going to turn the camera over to Joe and to get Joe's expertise and insights on the hobby.
I was very fortunate enough to grow up in an area in Jersey City along the Hudson River where we had two fantastic railroads, the Erie and the Pennsylvania. So I was fortunate enough to see the real thing from a very early age. And naturally, through every Christmas, my father would have the Lionels running around the Christmas tree. But more importantly, my dad owned the bar in Jersey City, and we had trains along the bar as the trains would go by across the street. It's just one of those things that, again, as you grow up, you seem to remember a train somewhere at some point, the whistle, a horn, or something. That train was always involved. And for me, I was more fortunate than others because I not only had the real thing, I also had the O-scale Lionel running around in the upstairs third floor, vividly remembering it as a child, along with my brothers. And naturally, as brothers, we do silly things with the trains, and that's what we kind of remember when we get together as we move forward in our retirement age. I do think technology plays a big part. I do believe that model railroading is part of the technology on apps that phones now have, these games that have, and I think if they can transition from a electronic version to the rail version, they'll see the excitement that we all did when we were growing up back in the 50s and 60s, because there's nothing like having something in your hand versus pushing a button on a screen.
We are now at a train show in East Rutherford, New Jersey, sponsored by the New York Society of Model Engineers and the Metropolitan Division of the Train Collectors Association. Joining us this morning is Doug Shems, Secretary and a Director of METCA. How did you get involved with trains?
My first experience was trains around the Christmas tree. It started with a Mark set, then we graduated to American Flyer, and now I'm doing Lionel. And I love the train videos, movies, TV shows that featured trains, and I like working on trains to bring some of the old ones back to life. For me, that's therapy, and I just would love to know some of the history of the trains that I have, where they were, who had them, and what was done with them.
So my dad had Lionel trains when he was a kid. And when I was a kid, he set them up, and I was a little too rough with them. So he put his Lionel trains away, and then one year Santa Claus brought me an HO gauge set. We had a layout. I stayed with the layout well into high school. They got put away. My son was born. He got into Thomas the Tank Engine, and we went from Thomas the Tank Engine to Lionel's, and we've been in Lionel ever since.
Fantastic. Now tell us, what would you advise people who want to get involved in the hobby?
So I got back involved in the hobby because of my son. And we went and we built a layout. My feeling is that there's too much electronics today. With my son, we built out a train room so he learned some carpentry. We built the benchwork so he learned some carpentry. He learned basic electrical wiring, and we also learned how to seating, how to build a diorama. And to be honest with you, my son just graduated Bucknell University with a degree in civil engineering. That's exactly what he wanted to do his whole life. He wanted to build stuff, and he wanted to work on trains, and right now he's working on the Grand Terminal Access Project.
Fantastic. Thanks, Ed.
Thank you.
I hope you enjoyed this visit to the New York Society of Model Engineers. And I hope you enjoyed the taste of this wonderful hobby. If you like this episode, would you please like us on YouTube? Share us with your family, your children, your grandchildren, and your friends. Thanks so much for watching. God bless you.